Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Nontshinga versus Yabuki fight. And so if you're new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Nontshinga is 13-1 with 10 KOs and Yabuki is 16-4 with 15 KOs. This fight is for the IBF World Light Flyweight title. Nontshinga's last fight was a win via TKO in round 10 versus Curiel, and Yabuki's last fight was a win via TKO in round 4 versus Vivas. This is in Yabuki's home country of Japan. Yabuki is 32 and Nontshinga is 25. Nontshinga's loss came via KO in round 2 versus Curiel in 2023, and Yabuki's losses have come versus Taraji in 2022 via KO, Mateon in 2018, Akui in 2018 via KO, and Nakatani in 2016. And to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying, like I say, this is Nontshinga defending his belts again. It's a new opponent for him defending the belt. Obviously, he has just had back-to-back fights with Curiel, and they were dramatic, I suppose, to say the least. And now he's back fighting. He's obviously gone to Japan and is aiming to defend against one of the top contenders in the division. It's a division in which currently perhaps isn't in the best of positions, because a couple of the fighters, a couple of the bigger names have just moved up to flyweight. I mean, Curiel in himself has just moved up, well, fought at flyweight last time out versus Edwards, so, you know, obviously he's not one of the bigger names, but he has just moved up. Kayaguchi has moved up, Taraji has just recently moved up and is, well, having his first fight at flyweight just this weekend, and then Bomb Gonzalez, another fighter who's also fighting on that card this weekend, and he's moving up as well. And so, you know, it's like I say, it's an interesting time for the light flyweight division. I believe, to be honest, both fighters in Nontshinga and Yabuki, I don't necessarily know how long they're both going to be around in the light flyweight division. I mean, Nontshinga has always been relatively big for the division, and I think the way that he'll progress, I believe he probably will move up and probably still be perhaps fighting for world titles, even if he moves up, even if, you know, there are some great names and big names about. I would love to see him in with some of them big names at flyweight. But then Yabuki as well perhaps might move up as well. Obviously he is on the latter stages of his career, but I think he's always been relatively big as well for the light flyweight division. So I think perhaps even if he loses this fight, he might go up and try and contest around some of the top contenders in the flyweight division. But if he wins, of course, perhaps he'll stay at flyweight and be more determined, because perhaps the belts are on paper seen as a bit easier to get. I'm not too sure. But of course, they have been both hurt. They've both been stopped quite badly. Obviously, Nontshinga's one was in very dramatic fashion versus Curiel, where it just seemed like Curiel landed the punch from the gods, and that's what landed. That's what completely destroyed Nontshinga in that first fight, and obviously he was a lot more defensively sound to make sure that that wasn't going to happen last time out. And, you know, I blame that a lot down to his great team in Colin Nathan, somebody who I've had the pleasure of interviewing, and, you know, he's been around with him for a while, Colin, and has brought up other great fighters like Hickey Butler in the lower divisions, and has had a lot of success with him as well. And in South Africa has a great kind of team around him and a great stable of fighters around. And, you know, he's also been known for some of his iconic talks in which he does in between rounds to really G up his fighters, and he's done that multiple times with Nontshinga as well, and it seems to always work. But yeah, no, it was very surprising to see that knockout the first time. Obviously, Curiel wasn't really seen as much of a huge puncher, but perhaps Nontshinga was a bit too complacent, a bit too relaxed, overlooking the opponent perhaps. But he definitely made sure that he didn't do that coming into the second fight. He was so much more compact in the guard, and, you know, at times, yes, he was drawn into a bit of a firefight with Curiel, but he was definitely getting the better of the exchanges, and he was always making sure he was very much covered from anything that was coming back towards him. Yabuki, though, like I say, he's been stopped quite badly, but he's only ever really been stopped against some of the best. I mean, the loss versus Nakatani is a loss that's aged very well, realistically. I mean, and you can't really say that about a lot of lotters. And I believe it was like a tournament that he was thrown into back in 2016, a long time ago, and Nakatani just coming up. Nobody really knew who Nakatani was at that point, and yeah, it was just crazy to think that you kind of were being put up against him so early on in his career. And he didn't get stopped. And then the Akui one obviously has aged very well as well. Obviously he got stopped, but Akui has improved even more since then and has kind of gone on to be a world champion. And nobody kind of expected at that point in his career that Akui would ever really go on to them honours. So, like I say, that's aged well. The Mateon one perhaps was a bit of a blip, but like I say, that was a little while ago as well now. And, the main one that sticks out as of recent is that Taraji one, which was quite a bad stoppage, to be completely honest, as well, for Yabuki. It was just walking backwards, taking a lot of shots on the chin in the air, and then just got dropped, and it wasn't a nice sight to see. But Taraji, of course, has been one of the best light flyweights ever, and there's no real discredit for him losing that fight and things like that. But it perhaps has had a little bit of an effect on him. Also, as of recent, he's gone and had an injury, and it's something that seemed to perhaps have kept him out for a little bit. It was an Achilles injury. It's kept him out for a little bit. Perhaps hasn't made him be as active as he wants to be. And last time out, he fought very nicely versus Vivas, and it was a comfortable win realistically for him. But he didn't really seem to be moving quite so much. A lot of the fight was at his pace, where he was catching, timing Vivas with a lot of shots, but he hasn't really been tested too much on that Achilles. Now, Nontshinga is able to move very nicely, very well, will invite pressure, but can also fight on the front foot if needs be. So perhaps he could test that Achilles, test that injury, and see what happens there, and that's where he possibly might be able to find success if Yabuki has any struggles with that going into possibly the later rounds. Like I say, if it's a high intensity, high paced fight in which they are both moving around a lot, perhaps that could play a factor. Nontshinga obviously is gone over to Japan, so Yabuki is going to have the larger fan base, and it's going to be interesting to see if that plays any sort of factor at all. Of course, the lower weights are pretty much dominated by Japanese fighters currently, so it wouldn't surprise me if some sort of an upset happens, not of course just because of where he's from, but also because he is a very good fighter in his own right, and I'm going to speak a bit more of that in a moment. But it's interesting to see that Nontshinga is willing to go over there, and he's never really shied away from going into an opponent's home country. He's gone to Mexico a few times to fight Mexicans, tough Mexicans, and he seems to succeed every time. But it was a non-matchroom card, and perhaps that's just, like I say, to get him a defence and to keep him busy and things like that. But it was interesting to see that he's on a non-matchroom card, of course, as a matchroom fighter. To speak about them both individually as fighters, so Nontshinga, like I mentioned, he comes in with differing game plans. He is versatile in the way in which he can fight. Perhaps at times he has seemed a little bit slower, and he seemed to perhaps have a little bit of a gas tank issue into the later rounds of certain fights when he's been fighting at a high pace. But last time out, made the adjustments necessary, was so much more defensively disciplined, picks his shots a lot better, didn't get caught with anything silly, stayed switched on, and was a very, very good game plan, and it was able to go into the later rounds looking more comfortable than ever. And so, like I say, that differing of game plans, that versatility in his game is an excellent thing to have. Like I say, he moves well, very much comfortable on the back foot and relaxed on the back foot, and able to pick his shots on the back foot, similar to an extent of that of Yabuki. Perhaps Yabuki offers more defensive vulnerabilities when he is on the back foot than that of Nontshinga, I believe. This is going off Nontshinga's last performance, but he is comfortable on the back foot, and I believe they both are. He's got a great jab, Nontshinga, and I believe he's technically a better fighter. I believe he has got a high IQ, and it's just using it when necessary. And like I say, he is technically a very good fighter. He's got a nice tight guard, and like I say, he can fight on the inside or at mid range very well. He's got excellent body work. I believe Yabuki's got good body work as well, and also can probably fight at an in close or at a mid range. So similarities there. He's got very good punch variation, Nontshinga, with an excellent uppercut, similar to that of Yabuki as well. He's powerful, Nontshinga. He's Often able to get the better of exchanges and was definitely able to do that versus Carrillo when they were just kind of head-to-head trading. All the times it was Nontshinga getting the better of the exchanges, well, pretty much all the time. He's got solid timing and he's got them fast hands. Negatives about him, like I've said, he's been hurt badly. Both fighters, like I mentioned, have been stopped badly, so perhaps it could go on to be a stoppage, but I believe they are both tough in their own right. I think Yabuki can take a shot. I believe he can be durable and he can come forward. But I believe Nontshinga, like I say, can be defensively sound and disciplined and then not go on to and allow any silly kind of opportunities for his opponents. And, like I say, he's been hurt badly, but perhaps that's, certain things that played into that factor. I think he can be a bit too reactive at times and bite onto feints quite a lot. He's not always as relaxed as I believe Yabuki can be. He can be outworked, and perhaps at times Korea would, even in that second fight, was outworking him a little bit. He can, I believe, overlook opponents. I think that can be a thing in which a factor. He invites pressure. Perhaps he's fighting emotionally a little bit at times and really trying to force the fighter perhaps a little bit. But I also believe Yabuki can also do that at points. Circling back round to the centre, sometimes he will just sit on the ropes a little bit. Like I say, it's a nice tight guard, but circling back round to the centre perhaps could create a bit more openings. I don't believe he's physically able to push you back. I don't believe he's really that strong. I think Korea was definitely able to really push him back and do his best work when he was able to just push him back. He takes shots. I think sometimes he has to remember to use his jab. It is an excellent jab, like I say, but he has to remember to use it. And accuracy on the front foot. It was an interesting stoppage for that second fight. It was a stoppage in which perhaps people were maybe questioning a little bit. Obviously, it seemed like he did have Carrillo hurt, definitely did, and was unloading a lot of shots, but a lot of them were missing. A lot were missing, and I don't know. I just think that accuracy on the front foot could get him caught because he is not really landing too much. And even if his opponent's hurt, even if they throw like a Hail Mary type shot, that's where they could find a bit of success because Nontshinga is very open when he's just unloading punches like that, and it's not really doing that much. And it's just wasting energy if he does do that, and then his opponent's able to carry on. Yabuki as a fighter, I believe, like I say, he's durable. I think he is durable. Like I say, even though he's been stopped, I think he is still durable. He commits to his shots nicely. He's got a good jab in himself. He's powerful, definitely has that ability to be able to kind of knock you out with that one punch or really damage you with that one punch. He plants his feet very well. I think he's got excellent timing and really will just kind of catch you when as soon as you come in with his range. He's a rangy type fighter, and as soon as you try and come in, he's very good at timing and landing shots with that. You can fight in closer after mid range. He's got good body work. He's got solid uppercuts, like I mentioned. Like I say, he's very relaxed, and often I believe that does help timing in general. When you are so relaxed, you can see fighters coming in and trying to make attacks, and you can just stay calm and then pick your shots from there and find them openings. He walks you onto shots. And he's very good at working range, I believe, at the same time as well. Like I say, because he is rangy, he's good at working his range and making fighters struggle to get inside against him. Negatives about him, I think perhaps he can have a little bit of a low output at times until perhaps he becomes a bit frustrated. Then or if he's losing, then I think the output comes, but then it's also a bit overcommitting, a bit wild, and things like that. Them kind of things can come into play, and he can become frustrated, I believe, at times. I think his defensive movement is often good. He's got good head movement, but sometimes his defensive movement can be a little bit worse than that of Nontshinga's, who I believe is very good. Uh, on the back foot, I think, like I say, he can become a bit open. He can stand square on, and he can have his chin in the air, and he can be quite open with his guard, and that's when he has been hurt from doing that before. And I think he can also struggle against opponents who are going to attack in high outputs because I think that's when he can get damaged. He's slower. I believe he's much slower than that of Nontshinga. He can sometimes sit on the back foot, similar to that of Nontshinga. He doesn't necessarily always make the necessary adjustments. He swings quite often quite low down, so he could get caught with one of the nice overhands in which Nontshinga throws, and like I say, can stand square on a bit at times. Nontshinga is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Nontshinga will win via unanimous decision. I think it's going to be an interesting contest. Like I say, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of version in which Nontshinga comes out with. But I could see if he comes out with that defensively disciplined guard, it's going to be first of all intriguing to see who comes onto the front foot, but then secondly, who's gonna be, the one to go for the exchanges. If Nontshinga is able to be on the inside of Yabuki, I think he can have success. If he's able to find his range and find the jab, he can have success. If he doesn't, if he stays switched on and doesn't make any silly mistakes that Yabuki can capitalize on, then I think he's going to have success again. I think it could be perhaps one of them fights in which Nontshinga just kind of draws it out a little bit, perhaps having success, like I say, with that overhand a bit at times and capitalising with the hand speed in which he does have. But I think it could be a fight in which he can just keep it simple, keep that tight guard, and then be able to have success to be able to win it from there. Then who he could go on to fight, like I mentioned, it wouldn't surprise me if it wouldn't be long until he moves up into the flyweight division, possibly could even for the next fight. And so, fights like Edwards versus Yafai is a great fight. Edwards has called out Nontshinga. Of course, they're both matchroom fighters. That could make for a very good fight. And Edwards, of course, also just beat Curiel, who is just, fellow opponents of that of Nontshinga. And he probably did it in better fashion than Nontshinga did it, especially, the fact that he didn't have to go through the rematch to do it. Bomba Gonzalez, he's fighting Olaskuga. It always seemed like Gonzalez was going to probably end up fighting Nontshinga and then the winner would fight Taraji in the light flyweight division, but now, of course, both Gonzalez and Nontshinga have moved up. Gonzalez and Taraji moved up, so perhaps that fight is still available though. Gonzalez has to get through Olaskuga, and that's for the WBO title. It's going to be a very tough ask for him to do that, but perhaps that could be a fight. Or if he is wanting to stay around the light flyweight division, something like a Gonzalez could be a great fight. Taraji only beat him by majority decision, and he has a win since then, and he's still one of the top contenders in the division. So I think perhaps for getting another defence under Nontshinga's belt, which would possibly be nice for him, that could be a good fight. But yeah, that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoy. Like the video if you didn't, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.